While working on my own Doom maps, I wondered, how optimized are the official games? Surely they wanted to save as many resources as possible by removing assets they never used. Well, not entirely. Let's see which graphics you never saw in the original Doom, starting with the textures. To find out, I combed through each map and counted every single instance of every single textures, put them all in a huge spreadsheet, and then I'm just kidding. I went into GZ Doom Builder, put all the maps into one file, and just looked at which textures didn't have a blue outline. I swear, making these videos is getting harder and harder. Anyhow, in Doom 1, the only textures to go unused are these two switch textures of the green starbase walls. It's strange because I swear I'd seen them before, but nope. Not a single map across all 4 episodes uses it. As for other assets, did you know that there's 2 versions of the bloody mess objects you can find lying around? They look identical, so I personally never even used the second version. I mean, why would I? And yet, it appears about as often as the other one. On the topic of chips, did you know that Lost Souls have a corpse object too? It's a leftover from the early days of Doom when they exploded into little metal bits on the floor. As they don't have that sprite anymore, it obviously isn't visible in-game. But it's still there. 3 of these buggers can be found in the game, unsurprisingly in the earliest maps. Overall, it seems like it was pretty vigilant here and tried to avoid making the game too bloated. Or at the very least, not let all that work on the assets go to waste. Now on to Doom 2. Here it gets a bit more interesting. Did you know that this poison warning sign goes completely unused? Yeah, it seems strange, right? There's 2 similar ones in the game, but not this one. I guess it makes sense, it's really more of a space-based texture anyway, and the story takes place on Earth. But even stranger is that all of these switches are absent. Oh no, not these ones, these are from Doom 1. In Doom 2, however, they all share the same texture of the brown switch that's already in the game, despite never actually being used. This also includes the green switch, meaning that not only did we never get to see it, but they also completely removed all traces of it from future titles. I mean, I can sort of understand forgoing it. At the top of your head, name a single map in the game that actually uses this green wall. Yeah, I can only think of Tricks and Traps, and even then, only barely. And you could argue the same for the switch on the beige wall, which also has an alternate variant. But these stone wall ones would have fit really nicely into some of the more gothic themed maps like the Citadel. Instead, those maps use the gargoyle heads or ones that look kinda similar. I just don't understand the idea of leaving these files in the game with a different graphic rather than just removing them altogether. So that's already quite a lot of textures that were never used, which seems a bit like a waste. But don't worry, there's even more. Like these ceiling lights. I mean, this one I can understand because there's a similar version. But this? That's made for city level, all 2 of them. At least it makes more sense that the skull floor and these 2 tentacle graphics went unused. They always did seem more like Doom 1 leftovers, especially the latter 2, which were basically made for the refinery. I can also understand why the upwards facing console is absent, since it's again more something you'd see in a UEC base. And I'm pretty sure the other variants only get used because of the chasm. Though, I have to admit I'm a little surprised the mossy cobblestone wasn't used anywhere. I always connect it with Gotcha, but it's only seen on walls there. As for objects, there's also a notable amount, but here it's even more understandable. The floor lamp is absent, which is again more of a Mars thing anyway. You'd think the same would go for the tall techno pillar, but nope. Here it is, in Monster Condo, and only Monster Condo. Why, I can't tell you. It doesn't even act as cover. Most of the dead demons are also gone, with even the Cacodemon and Zombie Man corpses only being used once. Even the second bloody mess appears far less. This short red pillar wasn't touched either, though the variant with the skull on top appears. Only once, of course. For such a large game with lots of varied maps, it's strange that so many graphics were left behind. You'd think that Doom 1, which changed creative directors at one point, would have more leftovers. Not Doom 2, which was built from the ground up by pretty much one person. Then again, many of these graphics and objects have alternate variants, and the game has about twice as many textures as the first. So it's honestly no wonder why a lot of it went unused. Another reason could be the fact that many levels went through lots of changes, leaving behind some graphics that were originally used. But I wonder, did those switches ever end up being used elsewhere, like some of the expansions or other official map sets? Doom 2's master level uses this switch exactly once, while it appears in both Plutonia and TNT 3 times. Likewise, the one that used to be on a green wall appears once each in them. And Sigil uses none of them at all, likely because they're very tech-based and that game takes place exclusively in Hell. I still find it weird that, despite many of these expansions using their own custom textures, none of them replaced the ones that were already in the files but went unused. Like all of the Wolfenstein ones, for example. I'm not gonna go through all the other graphics that go unused in these games, nor some of the other expansions, as there's far too many, and I also don't really care. So, what can we learn from all of this? Well, the next time you create your own wards and you feel bad about having so many leftover assets in your files, don't sweat it. Because if even id Software did the same thing in a time when every little byte counted, I'm sure people won't mind these days. On top of that, if you're making something that's supposed to be compatible with the original Doom 1 and 2, you can safely replace the switch texture without affecting anything. Do keep in mind, however, that you'd be an awful person and I will hate you for doing so. The poor Switch deserves better. Anyway, if you've liked this video, then show me that by leaving a like, a comment, by subscribing, and even by donating to my Patreon. Anything is appreciated. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and goodbye.